Good evening, Trump's family. Welcome back to my channel. Have a good night, everyone, and God bless you. Alright, the following is a collection of news from Patriots. Let's get into the news. And it looks like the FBI and DOJ, of course, are getting more and more desperate as the federal judge who has ordered a third party to review everything that took place to misconduct handled by the FBI DOJ against President Trump in their raid of President Trump's home. They're getting desperate. They're so desperate at this point. They're asking the judge to extend time, and not to allow certain things to be looked at. This judge needs to overrule this. And because you can't trust the FBI at this point, the FBI is criminally investigating Trump, so they have a clear bias in all of this. And they of course wants to hide any of their wrongdoing. And this federal judge continues to receive death threats from the left. No surprise, right? And of course the left is going to do allow. The Democrats will continue to allow these death threats to be leveled at this judge because that is what they do. But Julie Kelly here on Twitter really sums us up really fantastically. If you have not followed Julie Kelly over on Twitter, you need to do so. If you're on Twitter, even if you log on to Twitter going view in read mode, check out Julie Kelly's work. She is fantastic. She is on top of all of these things happening with the raid of Mar-a-Lago. Of course, the Fed kidnapping hoax of Michigan governor, the January 6th stuff. She is all over this stuff. She's fantastic source of information. So check her out over on Twitter. And she informs us of this. She said DOJ filed another motion yesterday, begging Judge Cannon not to permit a third party to review what prosecutors insist are classified documents stolen from Trump's home. The desperation is palpable. What are they? What are they hiding? Right? She comes down here to goalpost shift alert now to DOJ claims that the ICC, led by former Brennan Lackey and Obama confidant Avril Haines, must determine whether Trump's declassification of documents was legit. The old sources of method BS, right? And then a little bit further down. Here, she says on this point alone should deny state motion. First, no reason to trust the FBI with anything. Second, FBI is leading criminal investigation. So conflict here is obvious. They really don't want a special master to vet their claims. Why? Because they are lying. That is why they're lying. And all of the stuff that they continue to do, trying to obviously prevent a third party from viewing what took place. And of course, we know Trump has the recording of them, of what they did. They know they're in the wrong. They know they violated so many different norms. They violate policies. They violate so many different things, the Constitution, and they are trying to hide their tracks. And this judge so far is key to keeping them accountable, and they don't like it. They're used to judges that rubber stamp all of their stuff. This judge has not done so. And hopefully this judge continues to stand strong and will continue to hold their feet to the fire. And, I pray that this judge is protected, because the left side of politics are insane. They are willing to eliminate their political opponents if necessary. And they will cheer about it if that happens. So this judge is doing great work by holding the FBI and DOJ accountable for their malpractice of executing the search warrant that had no basis, because everything they are claiming that they went to do, remember this all sense back from a National Archives librarian saying, "Oh, no, Trump can't do that. No, Trump can't, because he was the president at the time. He has the ultimate say in declassification, not some pencil pusher in DC in the bureaucracy who thinks they're bigger than the elected officials because they're a bureaucrat who's been there for probably decades." Next thing that Trump needs to do when he is back in office in 2024 is to clear out debris. Your accuracy of this fire every single bureaucrat within the system that has worked against this country. Mass firing. Should be day one mass firings of the bureaucracy, mass firings in the military generals all the way down to, I don't know, maybe lieutenant colonels. That the military is in deep rock in the leadership positions. It needs to be completely cleaned and gutted. And then, the left has completely lost their minds. They've decided officially to double down. Joe Biden's ultra mega Republicans are a threat to democracy rhetoric clearly has been a massive failure. We've seen the result, we've seen the polling data. But of course the question is, did Democrats learn their lesson from B's horribly divisive, disgusting, authoritarian blood red backdrop speech? Well, the answer seems to be unequivocally absolutely not. The Democrats have decided to double down in the most despicable way you could possibly imagine by standing on the graves of the nearly 3,000 people who were lost on the horrific day of 9/11. using this tragic event to score cheap partisan political points on Twitter and other platforms, as the Democrats once again prove that there is nothing off limits, no subject too sensitive or too taboo, nothing to be avoided if the end result or the goal of submission is to attack Donald Trump and those who voted for him. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on here. Another despicable Democrat display. We've got some stuff to get into. So let's roll the tape. Alright, folks. So, first off, irony, hypocrisy. Left boys have spent years crafting this image that they are the old, virtuous, compassionate side of the political spectrum. They're constantly going on about virtues and good character. Donald Trump are people who voted for Donald Trump. They tell you are morally reprehensible bad people. People have bad character. But then why is it that the same people who are constantly pointing the finger to the other side as being deeply divisive are lacking basic ethics? Why is it that that side always stoops to the lowest of low levels and does frankly some of the most despicable things you could imagine? Well, very simple, folks. It's one word. It's called projection. Democrats. NBC anchor exploit 9/11 anniversary to invoke January 6th attack from domestic terrorists. A top Senate Democrat and media anchor commemorated the 21st anniversary of the 9/11 terrorist attacks by trying to compare them to the January 6th riots at the United States Capitol in 2021. That's right, despite 9/11 being a direct attack on the United States carried out by radical Islamic terrorists. Senator Mark Warner tried to equate the two events. Take a look at this. Everyone listen to this. And our country came together, and in many ways, we defeated the terrorists because of the resilience of the American public, because of our intelligence community. And we are safer, better prepared. The stunning thing to me is here we are 20 years later, and the attack on the symbol of our democracy was not coming from terrorists, but it came from literally insurgents attacking the Capitol on January 6th. So I believe we are stronger. I believe our intelligence community has performed remarkably. I think the threat of terror has diminished. I think we still have new challenges in terms of nation state challenges, Russia, and longer term, a technology competition with China. But I do worry about some of the activity in this country where the election deniers the uncertainty that took place on January 6th. That is something I hope we could see, that same kind of unity of spirit. Now, of course, I could go on. I mean, it's clearly a bad comparison. I could go into the details. But do I really need to? The only thing that really needs to be said here is that you have to be a truly awful person to not be able to put politics aside for half a damn second. And I mean, just the utter hypocrisy of these people, not only about what I was mentioning earlier about how they're always going on about bad character being only present on the opposite political side, then they do stuff like this. But the hypocrisy on this reoccurring talking point that keeps popping up with these clowns that are making this terrible comparison. Okay, folks. Let's talk about how seriously West Virginia Democratic Senator Joe Manchin, he just really shot himself in the foot and screwed himself and his state. He sided with Chucky Schumer and the Joey Biden regime. And he fell in and he agreed to the Inflation Reduction Act. He did that because they promised him that they would back him on legislation having to do with permits and other things that would be favorable when it comes to fossil fuels in his home state of West Virginia. Well, here's the problem. He's having a growing number of Republicans have voiced opposition to West Virginia Democratic Senator Joe Manchin's energy permitting reform plan, which spells trouble for the lawmaker. He was hoping that by capitulating and giving in to Chucky Schumer that he would get this legislation, which not only does he need the Democrats to back him and they don't want to back him, but the Republicans are like, why should we give Joe Manchin a win-win? He just screwed us over with the Inflation Reduction Act. Manchin after being a pretty smart politician. Boy, did you fall for the okey doke on this one? This is what Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming, where I currently am at, said, according to The Hill, quote, if you're looking now for Republicans to support and give you more cover than you have right now, you're not going to find it with us. That's what John Barrasso had to say to his fellow Senator Joe Manchin. So man, these days, here's the thing that Democrats, they screw their own. They screw their own voters, they screw their own people. You have to toe the line, you have to be, there is no straying away from the party line. There's no going after what is good for your constituents and your voters. It's what the deep state Democrat, Marxist machine tell you. And that's kind of the same battle we've been having on the Republican side, except that Trump kind of broke that. And the Republicans have always been more free thinkers. You often have. These people, not just a Mitt Romney's even before Trump and Mitt Romney, you'd have these breakaway senators and Democrat politicians, representatives in the Congress, voting maybe not exactly with the party. For the other constituents. You'd see that more in the Republican Party, but you hardly ever see that in Democrat Party. Joe Manchin being one of the ones that was kinda breaking the grain there. He fell in line with his party and now it's all falling apart. Okay, folks, there's a lot of hoopla, a lot of brouhaha about what Representative Tim Ryan said yesterday on MSNBC this morning. Joe, let me play this for you. And you tell me if I think it's a little overblown, not that I like Democrats and Ryan. What he said I think is pretty disgusting, but I don't think it's as bad as people are making it out to be. Am I being a Democratic politician, apologist now? No, I'm just pointing out that we've got to be fair. This is terrible rhetoric. But he's not calling for violence and blood. Everyone listen to this. What is your message to Ohio Republicans in this general election who may look at J.D. Vance and say, I don't like the way he's running the campaign? They don't like the guy and are giving you a look? Well, I would say I'm one of the most bipartisan members of Congress. The last few Congresses have been in the top 10% of most bipartisan. I want to work across the aisle. Look, the Democrats aren't right on everything. And I'm willing to sit down and have conversations about how we can move out of this age of stupidity and into an age of reconciliation and reform. How do we fix all of these broken systems? Some of those answers will come from Republicans, not the extremists that we're dealing with every single day. We've got to kill and confront that movement. But that, working with normal mainstream Republicans, I think that's going to be really, really important because we have to reform the systems. Okay. So the problem that everyone seems to be having with Tim Ryan, it says, we've talked about I've got to work with mainstream Republicans, meaning non-MAGA, meaning establishment Republicans, meaning Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy and the aforementioned horrible senator from my home state of Utah, Mitt Romney, Republicans, the Murkowski-Susan Collins. But we can't have these. We need to kill and confront the extremist Republican movement. Well, kill and confront, he meant the movement. I don't think he meant any individual President Trump or whatever. It was still tasteless language. But I don't think it was necessarily a call for language for violence. But here's the thing. I think it's stupid when one party is telling the other party exactly how they should run things, and how they should take care of things internally, or which part of that party should have more power than the other. That's just a silly way to go about doing things, because it's not your party. That being said, we can criticize the Democrat Party all day long. Because what have they done? They have let the far-left faction take over their party. Alright, let's get into Nancy Pelosi. She seems to be thinking that the Democrats are going to do quite well in November. What the hell does she know that we don't know? She seemed pretty optimistic a couple of years as well. Even though it didn't seem like what we've gotten now was really what we were gonna get, if you know what I'm saying. I can't say more than that on here, because you know why, but read between the lines. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi was ridiculed today for announcing House Democrats will pick up House seats and retain the majority. Now, polls don't support this. Almost every single blind poller would have you shows that the Republicans are going to have a red wave or a red tsunami, that their Democrats are going to lose seats. Biden isn't popular, the Democrat Party isn't popular, and historically, the incumbent president during the midterm elections will lose seats. The other party, I don't know if it's historically, the opposition gets all riled up. And they show the foibles of the incumbent president from the other party, and that gets people all ready to come out and vote, and they generally do better. But everything seems to be it's a Nancy's way of viewing things have nothing to do with those things. The bellwethers. Well, we know that Joey got 81 million, even though the bellwether, what he wants 1 out of 18, maybe 2 out of 19 bellwethers, but somehow he got 81 million more than anyone in history, and he won. So what does Nancy Pelosi know that we don't? Well, Lindsey Graham may be helping, and I'll break that down here in just a moment. Yes, indeed, Pelosi told Punchbowl News when asked if Democrats will win seats in November. So we're ready, mobilizing on the ground messaging, raising money. But the biggest factor of all is not only do we believe the candidates believe, so for a year, 10 months, 8 months, terrific. People had put themselves out there believing they could win in those districts. What does Nancy Pelosi know that we don't? Polls have Republicans winning the popularity, and the support behind Joe Biden is in the tank. The economy is doing bad. And of course, all those bellwether things that show that generally at a midterm, the opposing party to the incoming president prevails. Somehow, all of those things are going to be reversed. Come a few months from now. We'll get back to that in a second. Now, one thing is really interesting, and I've been saying, is they don't seem to care about what we think. For instance, Biden doesn't seem to care or worry about inflation, even though most Americans are concerned about it because it's hurting their wallet. Doesn't matter how much money you make. Biden shrugged off the latest unexpected, highly high inflation numbers, even as it triggered a sudden plunge in the stock market. I think we're going to be fine. Biden told reporters last night, when asked about the disappointing data released earlier in the day. He spoke briefly to reporters after traveling to Delaware from the White House to vote in his home state's primary election. When asked by a reporter whether he was worried about the latest inflation numbers, Biden replied, "No, I'm not." Huh. He flippantly, because he doesn't care. He's making money from Russia, Ukraine, the CCB. What does he care? He just missed the month-to-month overall number as 0.1%. As of that's nothing, but yeah, let's look at it from the previous month. Groceries rose 0.7%. In August, rent rose 0.7%. In August, the cost of electricity went up 1.5%. In August, natural gas prices rose 3.5% in August, and then inflation from the previous year is up 8.3%. But Joe's not worried. Everything is gonna be fine. Even though many economists, even those who are on his side, don't believe that he's correct. This includes both Larry Summers and Jason Furman of the previous Democratic administrations. Larry Summers is a former advisor to Obama. And he is now at Harvard. And Larry Summers is I think a Clinton guy. So there you go. But they're not concerned. What does Joey know? What does Nancy Pelosi know? That we don't know. By the way, Ron Klain, the White House chief of staff, also thinks that there's nothing to worry about when it comes to inflation. It's almost like they're ignoring the issue, because they know they can't win on the issue. And they think they're going to win anyway. This is real cause for concern. Thank you very much. WWG1WGA. Give me your